You are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Understanding Spirit of Anatomy on Tuesday Night Anatomy with Daniel Open. Today's section, I take you through a revision exercise on the branchial apparatus. My friends, what we did, just last week, that's what we are going to look at a revision section on. My friends, going forward, after taking you through the concepts, that is during the real impartation moment section, just the following week, we will look at some questions trying to test our understanding, regarding the subject matter. And my friends, that is what we call the understanding spirit of anatomy. And so we look at revision exercise on what we call the branchial apparatus. Some people can also call the pharyngeal apparatus. Now I have 7 questions over here, which in a very short time we are going to treat it. It's a revision section, very rapid one, so that of course you can quickly, readjust your learning, technique. Now the first question that we find over here is that what are the nerves of the pharyngeal arches? Now remember that the mesoderm, of these cells will give us all these pharyngeal, from neural crest cells will give us all these nerves of the pharyngeal arches. And so what are these nerves? Now last week I told you that the nerves, generally we call them post-traumatic nerves. Post-traumatic nerves, because they go through the superior portion of the arch. That's what we learned last time. But I told you that with the exception, the exception is found with only the first pharyngeal arch, which will have, in addition to the post-traumatic nerve, another nerve going caudally. That becomes the pre-traumatic nerve. So what are the nerves derived from, of course, the pharyngeal arches? My friends, it's pretty simple, and it's going to be for the first pharyngeal arch, the nerve, that we want to see. Let me put some answers over here. Regarding question number 1, the nerves of the pharyngeal arches. The first thing you should be aware is that the first pharyngeal arch, its nerve supply is going to be the mandibular nerve, V3. The 10th division of the trigeminal nerve, mandibular nerve, is going to be the arch for, the nerve for the first pharyngeal arch. It's as simple as that. That is the post-traumatic nerve. So I have to be quick and tell you the pre-traumatic nerve too. And the pre-traumatic nerve is nothing but, of course, the chorda tympani. Chorda tympani branch of course, the facial nerve. Although I will tell you that just from here, the second pharyngeal arch, its nerve supply, is going to come from, this time around, the facial nerve. And facial nerve is, of course, the 7th cranial nerve. That's what we see. Yes, it's as simple as that. Now, if you go to the 3rd pharyngeal, arch, the nerve supply, the 3rd, the nerve to the 3rd pharyngeal arch, my friends, is the glossopharyngeal nerve. Glossopharyngeal nerve. And glossopharyngeal nerve is nothing but, of course, the 9th cranial nerve. That's what we see. Now, if you move on, and we go to, of course, the 4th pharyngeal arch. Now, last time I told you that for the 4th pharyngeal arch, and of course, that of the 6th pharyngeal arch, the nerve supply generally will be the 10th cranial nerve. But we have some divisions of this 10th cranial nerve. Which portion of the 10th cranial nerve are you talking about? Now, for the 4th arch, the nerve supply is going to come from, of course, this time around we say the superior laryngeal nerve. Yes, we are still talking about, of course, the 10th cranial nerve, That is what we see. Yes. And then, of course, finally, we will talk about the 6th, not the 5th. We will talk about the 6th pharyngeal arch. The nerve supply, again, from, of course, this, vagus nerve. But precisely, what portion of the 10th cranial nerve are you talking about? We are talking about the recurrent laryngeal nerve, still of the 10th cranial nerve. So that is one thing I want you to know. So that answers our first question. So my friends, if you are not aware of this, then it means that you are deficient over here. You should be aware of this. Now quickly, if you go to the second question, it says, what are the muscles derived from the pharyngeal arches? So from each of these pharyngeal arches we are talking about, what muscles arise from them? That is what we want to understand. What muscles, okay, are derived from them? So the first thing is, if I take, so question number 2, if I take the first pharyngeal arch, what muscles will be derived from it? My friends, last week I told you that think about muscles of mastication. Think about muscles of mastication. And what are these muscles of mastication? So the first thing, what muscles are derived from the first pharyngeal arch? We write muscles of mastication. And whenever we talk about muscles of mastication, we are talking about the temporalis muscle, we are talking about the masseter muscle. My friends, we are talking about the medial pterygoid and the lateral pterygoid muscles. These are the muscles of mastication. But is that all, my friends? No, that is not all. Because over here at the diaphragm, okay, forming what we call the oris diaphragm, we see a muscle over there, and that, my friends, that muscle is what we call the mylohyoid muscle. Mylohyoid muscle. Mylohyoid muscle, yes, is one of those muscles. Not only that, we see mylohyoid muscle with what we call the anterior belly of digastric muscle. Now I want to shorten it, anterior belly of digastric muscle. ABDG, okay, will be the muscle that I'm talking about over here. My friends, is that all? No. Now, there's one simple thing that always helps me. Now, these muscles of mastication we are talking about, okay, mainly are supplied by what we call anterior division of what we call the mandibular nerve. But there's one muscle whose nerve supply is coming from the main trunk of the mandibular nerve. And my friends, that muscle is what we call the medial pterygoid muscle. Medial pterygoid muscle. Okay, now apart from this nerve to medial pterygoid coming from the main trunk of the mandibular nerve, it also goes on to supply two muscles with the name of tensor. So they have the initial name tensor. So if you've heard of some muscles like tensor belli palatini, tensor belli palatini, tensor belli palatini, okay, and also tensor tympani. Now, tensor belli palatini, okay, is a muscle, okay, of the palate, while tensor tympani is a muscle of the middle ear. Yes, because they begin with the name tensor, okay, they are derived from, of course, the first pharyngeal arch. Therefore, their nerve supply, yes, is coming from the main trunk of what we call the mandibular nerve. That's what we see. Now, if you move on and we go to, that of the second arch, what are the muscles derived from it? Now, I told you that the name is what? Facial nerve. For this reason, all the muscles of facial expression, that's what we are talking about. Zygomaticus major, zygomaticus minor, vaccinator muscle, risorius, is that okay? Levator, levator labii superioris, okay? Levator anguli oris, depressor anguli oris, okay? Depressor labii inferioris. All these muscles we are talking about, corrugator supercilii, okay? These are the muscles we are talking about. We are talking about orbicularis oculi muscles. We are talking about the frontalis, the occipitalis together, occipitofrontalis muscle. Don't forget about the auricular muscles, okay? The superior auricular muscle, the posterior auricular muscle, okay? We talk about, of course, the anterior auricular muscle. These auricular muscles, okay, will be derived from, of course, the second pharyngeal arch. That is why, of course, their nerve supply is is by the facial nerve. And so I want to tell you that we are talking about, of course, we're talking about the nasalis, okay? all those, nerves around, so all those muscles over there. So we are talking about muscles of facial expression. Facial expression. Now that's what we are interested in. Muscles of facial expression. Anything that can help you to make some kind of gestures, okay, in there. But is that all, my friends? No, that was not all. Because if you go inside the middle ear, the smallest muscle we have in the human body in the middle ear, which we are calling is stapedius, is part of this. Stapedius. So even the stapedius muscle, yes, is derived from the second pharyngeal arch. Yes. But is that all, my friends? No. Because there's one muscle over here. Now, we have anterior belly of digastric. We also have posterior belly of digastric. And for posterior belly of digastric, it is not derived from the first arch. It is derived from, of course, the second arch. So we talk about posterior belly of digastric muscle. Yes. And my friends, posterior belly of digastric muscle always runs with one muscle, which we call as stylohyoid muscle. Stylohyoid muscle. So my friends, put down stylohyoid muscle as well. Stylohyoid muscles. Okay, muscle is also part over here. Yes. Now, sometimes we want to go on and mention other things, talk about platysma. It's part of the muscles of facial expression. Okay, if you can try the causal wrinkling in this region over here, one of those panniculus callosum muscles is part over here. Now, if you go to the third arch, yes, the nerve supply is the glossopharyngeal nerve. So it means one muscle, there's a single muscle, which I've told you is the stylopharyngeus muscle. Stylopharyngeus. Stylopharyngeus muscle will be derived from the third pharyngeal arch. Now, how about the fourth pharyngeal arch? My friends, for the fourth pharyngeal arch, recurrent laryngeal nerve is known for giving motor supply to the intrinsic muscles of the larynx. Yes, it's as simple as that. Giving motor supply to the intrinsic muscles of the larynx, okay, is through the recurrent laryngeal nerve, except one of them. So my friends, all that we need to put over here is intrinsic muscles of the larynx, laryngeal muscles. And I need to be quick and tell you the exception. I'm interested in telling you the exception, except cricothyroid muscle. Okay, except cricothyroid muscle. But I have to go forward and tell you one more thing. Now, muscles of the pharynx, okay, we will see that muscles of the pharynx generally will be supplied by what we call the spinal accessory nerve via the vagus nerve. Something we call vagal accessory complex. And it forms something we call pharyngeal plexus. Okay? But my friends, one pharyngeal muscle is supplied by this recurrent laryngeal nerve. It's part of the inferior constrictor muscle. Now, if you look at inferior constrictor muscle of the pharynx, helping to constrict the pharyngeal area, what we see is that one of them, okay, from the pharynx, okay, it attaches to the thyroid cartilage. And my friends, that one is what we call thyropharyngeus muscle. There's another one we call cricopharyngeus muscle, okay, which is over here, the one below. Now, I'm interested in the one above, okay, thyropharyngeus muscle, okay. So, thyropharyngeus. Yes. That is what we see. Now, in going forward for the recurrence, sorry about this, we are talking about superior laryngeal nerve. Okay, so we shouldn't be talking about these things. No, sorry about them. These ones rather belong to the recurrent. So please, let's do them over here. Intrinsic muscles of the larynx, recurrent. Except cricothyroid muscle, and of course cricopharyngeus, sorry, cricopharyngeus. And then one more, cricopharyngeus. Not thyroid, cricopharyngeus. Okay. Cricopharyngeus. Because of course, I mean the one over here is more close to the pharyngeal area, so it will be supplied by the pharyngeal plexus. Okay, but the one below will be supplied by, of course, this recurrent pharyngeal nerve. Now let's clean this one from here. Because my friends, the superior pharyngeal nerve will contribute to the formation of the pharyngeal plexus, the vago-accessory complex we are talking about. For this reason, my friends, you put down over here that this one through, of course, I mean, it's a spinal accessory nerve through the vagus nerve by way of the superior pharyngeal nerve will supply muscles of what we call the palate muscle. But obviously there should be an exception, except what we call, I mean, I mentioned one palate muscles over here for you, and this one was tensor belli palatini. Tensor belli palatini. So it means that unlike tensor belli palatini, where it's all a palate muscle, okay, it is that one is right in the first arch. So the exception, except tensor belli palatini. Yes. And then, of course, it will also supply muscles of the pharynx, okay, that pharyngeal plexus, muscles of the pharynx, pharyngeal muscles, but except two. Yes, there will obviously be some exception. We've seen one exception over here. The cricopharyngeus is one of them. Yes, and not only that, I mentioned to you that from the first 10 arch, stylopharyngeus, okay, to accept stylopharyngeus, which is in the 10th arch, and of course the cricopharyngeus, okay, muscle in, of course, you know, the 6th arch. That is what we see. So it's as simple as that. We've been able to answer the second question too. Now the third question says, explain why this anterior belly of digastric muscle is supplied by mandibular nerve, but the posterior belly of digastric muscle is supplied by the facial nerve. My friends, the reason is simple. I mean, grossly, the simple answer we will give is that while the anterior belly of digastric muscle is supplied by, of course, what we call the mandibular nerve, okay, I mean, why is that supplied by mandibular nerve? The reason is simple, because it belongs to, of course, it is derived from, of course, the first pharyngeal arch. While, of course, this one, because it's derived from the posterior belly of digastric, but because it's derived from the second arch, okay, of the branchial apparatus, that is why it is supplied by, of course, the facial nerve. It's as simple as that. So if they ask you why a particular muscle is supplied by a particular nerve, you think about the arch where it is derived from. It's as simple as that. Now the next question, where is number 4, says, states the skeletal structures derived from the first and second pharyngeal arches. Okay, so in the first arch, I told you that there was a cartilage model. Okay, that will also be a question. What is the name of the cartilage model? I told you that the cartilage model for the first arch is Merkel's cartilage. Merkel's cartilage. Now, if you think about it, it should be able to give us some derivatives. Now, this Merkel's cartilage is able to give rise to the most anterior portion of the mandible. Okay, the most anterior portion of the mandible. Because the reason is that although the mandible is derived, now let me tell you this, the mandible through through intramembranous osculation mainly, it will give rise, okay, to be formed. Okay, except the most anterior portion only. So what we are saying is that this one over here, the mandible, is derived. Which one skeletal structure is derived from the first arch. Let's mention them. Okay, then of course, if we go to the dorsal aspect, we are going to see the maxilla also derived from the first arch. Not only that, the zygomatic bone that I told you about, the squamous portion of what we call the temporal bone. It is also going to be derived from, of course, the first arch. Yes, even including the palatine bone. Now, what's the reason? The reason is that, now look at it, this is what we call the maxilla. Together with the palate, if I go posteriorly, I will go to the palatine bone. So it's in that continuity. So even including the palatine bone, okay, derived from, okay, so these are the things. But I want you to know that those one which will be derived from what we call the Meckel's cartilage, okay, mainly we'll be talking about the ear ossicles. Now I told you that the first 3 ear ossicles, malleus and incus, will be through endochondral ossification of the Meckel's cartilage model. Yes. So malleus, incus. Now, even the anterior ligament of malleus, okay, anterior ligament of malleus, yes, will also be derived from the Meckel's cartilage. Anterior ligament of malleus. Is that all? No. If we talk about the sphenomandibular ligaments, yes. So these are derivatives, okay, the skeletal structures we can talk about, okay, which are derived from the first pharyngeal arch. What have we said? The mandible, okay, we talk about the maxilla, even the palatine bone, talk about the zygomatic bone, talk about the squamous portion of the temporal bone, okay, talk about the 2 ear ossicles, malleus, incus, talk about the ligament, anterior ligament of malleus, talk about sphenomandibular ligament, okay, one of the 4 ligaments of the temporomandibular joint will all be derived from the first pharyngeal arch. It's as simple as that. However, for the second arch, now I told you that the second arch will have, okay, we know that the first arch is also called mandibular arch, okay, the second arch, which is also called hyoid arch, has a cartilage model, and my friends, that cartilage model, okay, is the one that we call rickets cartilage. Now last week we mentioned all these things, just trying to do a quick recap. Rickets cartilage. So it means that that rickets cartilage, okay, can give rise to certain things through endochondral ossification. And the important thing will be the 3rd ear ossicle. You know, I told you about the mesh bones, ear ossicle mesh. Okay, malleus, incus taken care of by the first arch. Now S, stapes, okay, will be derived from the second pharyngeal arch, the cartilage model, ricket cartilage. Okay, and for this reason, so stapes. But is it the full extent of the stapes? My friends, no. Because there's some portion of what we call the stapes, okay, which makes contact, okay, with the inner ear. Yes, the oval window, it makes contact with it. And my friends, that is what we call the foot process of the stapes. My friends, the foot process of the stapes is not derived from, of course, ricket cartilage in the second arch. Rather, it is derived from something called otic capsule. And otic capsule is, my friends, ectodermal. It's as simple as that. Okay, so that is, one thing that I want you to know. But is that all? No, we are not through with it, because we told you about the styloid process of the temporal bone. The styloid process of the temporal bone will be derived from it, second arch. And yes, we talk about the ligament which will attach from the styloid process to the hyoid bone. Stylohyoid ligament is also part of it. Yes, stylohyoid ligament. And I told you, to the hyoid bone, which portion of the hyoid bone are you talking about? Which portion? We are talking about what we call the lesser corn of the hyoid bone, and also the upper body of what we call the hyoid bone. Yes, that is what we see. And then, so whenever we talk about lesser corn, we're talking about the lesser horns. Okay, they are just on it, so they were attached in that manner. Yes. And then when we look at that of the 10th arch, is the 10th arch, which is rather going to give us what we call the lower body of the hyoid, including, of course, the posterior, what we call the greater corn okay, or the greater horns of the hyoid bone. That is what we see. So that answers our 4th question, the skeletal structures derived from, of course, the first and second arches. Now don't forget that if you look at the skeletal structures mainly derived for the 4th and 6th arches, okay, think about, of course, I told you about the laryngeal cartilages. Although there are a lot of controversies, yes, regarding it. Some say that, yes, even the thyroid cartilage and then of course the epiglottis will be derived from the fourth arch, and then the remaining cartilages are derived from, of course, the sixth arch. But all these things, but so together, the fourth and sixth arches, okay, will give rise to, of course, the laryngeal cartilages. Now, being through with that, then the next one is state the derivatives of the pharyngeal pouches. The derivative of pharyngeal pouches is as simple as that. So the derivatives, now I told you that for the clefts, which are ectodermal, because of the downward growth, because of the push of the mesoderm in the second arch, okay, the second arch, its ectoderm grows downwards to cover the remaining clefts. That is why we are left with only one opening from the lateral aspect. Okay, if you look at, there's only one opening by way of the external acoustic meatus, together with the outer layer of the tympanic membrane, okay, giving, formed from what we call the clefts of the first arch, or the first pharyngeal arch apparatus. Now, for the pouches, I told you that they are all intact. There are 4 pouches I want you to know. The first one, the first pouch, so it's related with the ear. So the first pouch will give rise to the inner layer of the tympanic membrane, Then we go on to middle ear cavity. Yes. We go to, anteriorly, distation to posterior, we talk about mastoid antrum. Okay, so these are the things that I want you to be aware of. Yes. So these will be those things. Okay, that will be for the first pouch. But I told you that before we get all these structures, there will be a recess that will be formed. Some people call tubo-tympanic recess. Tubo-tympanic recess. Now, having talked about these ear things, then one more question I'll put over here was that which ear apparatus or which ear structure is derived from all the 3 germ layers? And my friends, I'm sure you answered that your answer is tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane. The reason is that the outer layer of tympanic membrane is ectodermal, the middle layer is by mesoderm, then of course the inner layer is by what we call the first part, which is of course endodermal, through the tympanic recess. Now the next one, which is the second pouch, okay, for the second part I told you that it will give rise to the epithelial lining of what we call the palatine tonsil. It means that when we ask you, where is it coming from? Is it endodermal? Is the epithelial lining of palatine tonsil endodermal, ectodermal, or mesodermal? Your answer will be endodermal, yes. Because it's coming from, of course, the first, it's the second pouch, okay. Of course, the surrounding, okay, the endoderm, which will be surrounding the intervening, what do you call the mesoderm, forming its core, okay. The mesoderm, okay, around the 20th, week of intrauterine life to be converted, okay, to give rise to all these palatine, lymphatic nodules, okay, in there. But I'm looking at the epithelial lining, then think about the second pharyngeal arch, the pouch. Now, how about the third pouch? Now, for the third pouch, I told you that it's giving rise to what we call the thymus, including the inferior parathyroid glands. Now, that is where that no controversy comes, because the fourth pouch is rather giving rise to the superior parathyroid gland. While the third is rather the cranial region developmental, and the fourth is at the cord. So the third, okay, sorry, the inferior is rather from the third pouch, okay, while the superior is rather from the, from the fourth pouch. So why? But the point is that because the ventral aspect is giving rise to, of course, the thymus, and the dorsal aspect giving rise to these parathyroid glands, okay, then what will happen is that through migration of the thymus, because the thymus, its final destination should be in the mediastinum, and anterior mediastinum should come all the way, come downwards, okay, superior, of course, some portion in the anterior mediastinum, okay, so it has to come down there, and as it migrates, it will be moving with it, so that at the end of the day, because it moves downwards and it will be moving with it, essentially, the inferior parathyroid gland will come below the superior parathyroid glands. That's one thing I want you to be aware of. That will also be a question for you. Now, there's one more thing that I want to tell you, which can also be referred to as the fifth pouch, although we don't really have it, something we call the ultimobranchial body. Now, last time we said that the ultimobranchial body is a site where some neural crest cells will migrate in there to form parafollicular C cells. We've established that already. Now, let's look at the next question. Question number 6 says, ligamentum arteriosum is a remnant, okay, of which arch? Ligamentum arteriosum. Now, ligamentum arteriosum used to be ductus arteriosus. Yes. And my friend, ductus arteriosus is with the cis arch only. Yes, that's one thing I want you to be aware of. For this reason, it reminds me, what is the artery to the first arch? My friends, your answer is maxillary artery. What it means is that although these structures, these muscles, for instance, in the first arch, muscle of mastication, okay, milo-hyoid and tribelly of the gastric, okay, and what have you, tensor belli palatini, okay, tensor tympani, they are all, because they are all derived from the first arch, their nerve supply is the mandibular nerve, but the arterial supply will not be by, of course, the mandibular artery, so-called. It will rather be through maxillary artery. So that's what I want you to know. The first arch, maxillary artery. The second arch, I told you about hyoid and stapedial artery. Okay? Then I told you about the third arch. The third arch I told you about for the left, okay, we talk about the arch of aorta, while for the right, we talk about the right, okay, sorry about that. We talk about what we call common carotid artery. Okay, so that's one thing we see. If it is, of course, the third arch, okay, I'm talking about what we call the, common carotid artery, and of course, the internal carotid artery. Common carotid artery and internal carotid artery. Yes, that's what we see. While, of course, the fourth arch, the artery over there, for the left, will be, of course, arch of aorta, then for the right, will be what we call the, the right subclavian artery. Right subclavian artery. That's what we see. And of course, we said the cyst will be the pulmonary artery, left and right pulmonary artery. But for the left, in addition to that, we also have, ductus arteriosus. Now, it is that ductus arteriosus that postnatally it will become obliterated, and the remnant, okay, is what we call ligamentum arteriosum. So it means that it tells me that it should be derived from the cyst arch. Okay, good. Now, finally, okay, so that we bring this class to a close, this is a very rapid one that we're going through. The next one says the fourth and fifth pouch, okay, which I've told you that the fifth pouch, okay, is our ultimobranchial body, can collectively be referred to as what? Now, I told you that the ultimobranchial body is the last thing, okay, to be derived in the branchial apparatus. Also, I told you that, okay, parallel or lateral to what we call the developing pharynx, okay, around the 3rd week, 4th week, what we see is that the development happens in craniocaudal direction from lateral to medial. I told you about that. And for this reason, as we go caudally, the caudal structures are these two things, fourth and then the ultimobranchial body, fourth pouch and ultimobranchial body. That is why we call them caudal pharyngeal complex. Caudal pharyngeal complex. Okay, so that is, one thing that we see. My friends, I believe you've understood this, rapid revision with you. We'll do, more of these things, okay, so that you can really appreciate, okay, all these things we talk about. I'm very grateful for your time this evening. Have a nice evening, and may the good Lord richly bless you. Amen.